This is BBC1. Now the 6 o'clock news with Anna Ford and Diana Medill.
The Queen has just paid tribute to Diana, Princess of Wales. In a live broadcast, she said the world had been overwhelmed by a feeling of sadness. She described the princess as an exceptional and gifted human being. Earlier, she met some of the crowds outside Buckingham Palace. The three princes talked to the crowds at St James's and at Kensington Palace. Harrods has released a security video taken the night the princess died, which it says casts doubt on the claims that her driver was drunk. And in a change of plan, the body of the princess is to be buried in the grounds of her ancestral home, Althorp House, not in the family vault. The Queen has just paid tribute to Diana, Princess of Wales, in a live broadcast to the nation. She said the princess was an exceptional and gifted woman who inspired others. Earlier, the Queen and other members of the royal family had returned to London and met the crowds of mourners outside the royal palaces. The Prince of Wales, Prince William and Prince Harry received flowers and talked to the crowds outside Kensington Palace. The Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh greeted some of the thousands gathered at Buckingham Palace before going on to the Chapel Royal at St James's Palace, where the princess's body is lying at rest. Prince Charles and his two sons are due to pay their respects later this evening. John Simpson reports on the day's events.
At 2:20 this afternoon, the one basic thing people in the crowds here had been calling for all week took place. The Queen came back to Buckingham Palace. There was a momentary hitch when the royal standard seemed to be stuck at half-mast, but it hadn't been intentional. Soon it was hoisted firmly to the top of the pole. As the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh came out to meet the crowds soon afterwards, it must have been one of the most difficult moments of her entire reign. But as they examined the enormous heaps of flowers, there wasn't the slightest opposition or criticism, merely sympathy and support. The people they spoke to in the crowd afterwards said the Queen sometimes had tears in her eyes. One small girl offered her some flowers, and the Queen asked if they were really for her. When the girl's grandmother said they thought she needed some, her eyes filled with tears. Time and again, when people wanted to add their bouquets to the pile, the Duke of Edinburgh took them over for them. This was very much the response which the people waiting outside had been hoping for. A little less formality, a clear sign of feeling. Shortly before, the Prince of Wales and his two sons arrived to meet the crowds at Kensington Palace, their home until the breakup of the prince's marriage in 1992. This must have been a difficult moment for each of them too. But again, the intense sympathy from people who had badly wanted to see them carried them through it. The hardest point seemed to come when they went over to look at the flowers. There are more flowers here than anywhere, and the scent that comes from them is extraordinary. Standing outside the house where the two boys spent their childhood was plainly an emotional moment for all of them. If there'd been any anxieties about the reception they were going to get, this was the answer.
And I shook his hand and then I got all tearful. I couldn't say anything.
Yeah, I shook his hand and I said, you know, they'll always be in our thoughts and in our prayers, and that comes from the bottom of our heart.
And William came next to him and I told him that we were so sorry for him and that his mother will live on in him. And he said, thank you.
The Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh went down to St James's Palace to see the crowd of people who waited long hours to sign the books of condolence. It was here that the first sense of discontent and criticism came earlier in the week. It was here, too, that the complaints had their first effect. Instead of 3 or 5 books of condolence, there are now 43. This was one of the concessions that Buckingham Palace has made, like the Queen's broadcast this evening, and the palace flag at half-mast tomorrow, and the less stuffy funeral and today's walkabouts.
Well, I think all the people have been coming here every day, particularly hoping that she would return. And I think now, judging by the people who were around me and their comments, we're, pleased she's back and we feel better now.
I'm very glad that she's come here. I feel very sad for her, and I think none of us can really know how she's feeling at the moment, and I think we need to give her a lot of respect, and I'm very happy that she's come.
It's fantastic to see her back at home. Believe me, all the nation's forgiven her now. That's the past. She's come home now, and she's with the nation, and we can understand she was comforted the grandchildren, and now she's with us all again. I'm extremely pleased she's back in London now.
In the next hour or so, the Prince of Wales will go with Prince William and Prince Harry to the Chapel Royal, where the Princess's coffin is lying in front of the altar. Tomorrow will be a very testing day, but the question of public support may well now have been settled. John Simpson, BBC News.
A few moments ago, the Queen broadcast to the nation from Buckingham Palace. She paid tribute to Diana, Princess of Wales, as an exceptional and gifted human being.
So what I say to you now, as your Queen and as a grandmother, I say from my heart. First, I want to pay tribute to Diana myself. She was an exceptional and gifted human being. In good times and bad, she never lost her capacity to smile and laugh, nor to inspire others with her warmth and kindness. I admired and respected her for her energy and commitment to others, and especially for her devotion to her two boys. This week at Balmoral, we have all been trying to help William and Harry come to terms with the devastating loss that they and the rest of us have suffered. No one who knew Diana will ever forget her. Millions of others who never met her, but felt they knew her, will remember her. I, for one, believe there are lessons to be drawn from her life and from the extraordinary and moving reaction to her death.
I'm joined now from Buckingham Palace by our correspondent Clarence Mitchell. Clarence, I believe that some people in the crowd have heard what the Queen said on radios. What's their reaction to it?
Indeed, that's right, Anna. Yes, many people are still waiting in front of Buckingham Palace to witness the procession of a hearse taking Diana's coffin from St James's Palace, the Chapel Royal, up to Kensington Palace later this evening. And yes, you're right, they have been aware of what the Queen has been saying. And in fact, I have two people with me who have been in the crowd outside Buckingham Palace throughout the day. Terry McDowell from Billericay in Essex and Joan McSweeney from Hainault, also in Essex. Terry, first, if I could ask you, what do you actually think, your initial impression of the Queen's address?
I think a very difficult time for the royal family, a very difficult speech for the Queen, probably the most difficult she'll ever have. And I think she touched on everything that everybody's feeling at the moment. I think it was very good. I'm very happy.
And Joan, your thoughts as well. She paid tribute to Diana. She thanked everyone for the support so far.
Yeah, I agree with Terry. I think it was a very good speech, what was said. Yes, I do agree. I hope it's true that she feels that, it is her words and nobody else's. And also, I hope they do learn that communicating with the people, that's what the people want, and it's not people power making them change.
Terry, on that point, do you think the royal family has now done enough to allow for public opinion?
Yes, I think so, yes. It's been a very difficult time. I mean, I can understand, I can feel for her being up there with the children in Balmoral, but it must have been very difficult, and it must be even just as hard to come down here and do a speech like that. I think the royal family have come through here. I'm very pleased.
And Joan, briefly, your thoughts as well. Do you think that the royal family has bound to public opinion, or have they done this on their own terms?
I think there's public opinion. I do, yes. A statement perhaps earlier saying that they were going to do this may have helped. I know it's been a very difficult time for them, and every family needs to be on their own to come to terms with this kind of bereavement.
Joan McSweeney, thank you very much, and Terry McDowell, thank you. With that, back to you, Anna, in the studio.
Clarence, thank you. Well, with me now in the studio is our court correspondent, Jenny Bond. Jenny, I don't think I've ever seen the Queen looking more relaxed when she's making a formal statement, and it carried great warmth, didn't it?
It did. She was very composed, but clearly moved, and a great deal of emotion in this. To use the words that it was coming from the heart is extraordinary, coming from the Queen. And I think she captured Diana's spirit perfectly. She said that she never lost her capacity to smile and laugh, in good times or bad. So the Queen was recognising that there were bad times. And I think it's interesting that she spoke of her respect for Diana as well, and for her work, her great commitment.
She also talked about the mixture of emotions, which is touching on difficult ground, isn't it? That after an event like this, people do have a mixture of emotions.
Yes, she was trying to explain why they'd stayed at Balmoral, and she said that they'd had a whole range of feelings, shock, disbelief, incomprehension, anger, and concern for those who remain. I think in doing so, she is showing that although we cannot expect this weighty institution to change its whole character overnight, she has shown us its humanity, its other face, its vulnerability, its hurt, and its emotions, and that is extremely unusual.
Well, the other extraordinary thing that she said is that I, for one, believe that there are lessons to be learnt from her life and from the extraordinary and moving reaction to her death.
Yes, and she went on to say that she shared in our determination to cherish Diana's memory, and by implication it means that Diana's legacy will go on if the Queen has anything to do with it, and put that together with the statement that lessons are to be drawn, and I think perhaps she is saying that they are going to try to change.
So do you see this as a sort of watershed for the monarchy?
I think undoubtedly it has been exactly that. As I say, I don't think there'll be changes overnight, but I think she's done all she can now to assuage the hurt of the people, as well as the royal family being hurt, and paid very moving tribute to someone who, as she said, I thought very touchingly, said, Diana made many, many people happy.
Jenny Bond, thank you very much.
Mohammed Al Fayed has released a security video from the Ritz Hotel in Paris showing moments from the last few hours in the lives of the princess and her son Dodi. The Spencer family told the BBC that they had no objection to the release of the video.
Diana, Princess of Wales, and Dodi Fayed arrive at the Ritz Hotel in Paris for dinner. Photographers are there to greet them, but are kept at bay by security staff who escort the couple into the foyer. Mohammed Al Fayed reportedly didn't want to release this security video, but felt it was necessary to counter what he said were misleading allegations that had been made. Allegations that the driver of the car in which the princess died, Henri Paul, here pulling up at the hotel in his Mini, was drunk. Mr. Al Fayed's staff claim this footage shows a man steady on his feet and clearly sober. They say all those pictured with him have given evidence backing that view.
Hotel security.
At a news conference at Harrods, a senior forensic scientist who spent 2 days in Paris at the request of the Al Fayeds said the pathologist's report suggesting Mr. Paul had drunk excessive amounts of alcohol was not reliable.
In my view, given that Mr. Paul died a violent death with extensive internal injuries, the possibility of contamination of the blood is a real one and must be seriously considered.
Journalists were told that Mohammed Al Fayed would dedicate the proceeds of an auction of the Duke and Duchess of Windsor's collection and £5 million either to charities supported by the princess or to set up a children's hospital. His spokesman also said he'd been authorised to give a few details of what he said was the sincere relationship between the princess and Dodi Fayed.
The princess also gave to Dodi a pair of cufflinks. They were the last gift she had received from her father, the late Earl Spencer. She said that she knew that it would give him joy to know they were in such safe and special hands.
The couple are pictured here at the back exit of the Ritz just before leaving on their final journey. The Al Fayeds say there's no sign of photographers as the car pulls away slowly, but a large crowd is waiting at the front. These startling images of the last few hours in the life of the princess and of others who are accused of playing a part in her death cannot answer why the accident happened, but they shed some light on what happened immediately before the crash and on the incredible pressures the princess faced from the paparazzi. This afternoon, Dodi's father, Mohammed Al-Fayed, made his first public appearance since the tragedy, greeting the crowds gathered outside his store to thank them for their support. Jane Peel, BBC News, Harrods.
Preparations are continuing for tomorrow's funeral at Westminster Abbey. Millions of people are expected to converge on the capital, with hundreds already preparing to spend tonight outside the Abbey, some for the second night in a row.
They have saved their places outside Westminster Abbey and they won't give them up for the world. For many mourners, a distant glimpse of the funeral simply won't be good enough. This evening they're bedding down for another night, sleeping rough so they can be as close as possible to the heart of the nation's grief.
I just feel it is my duty to be here to say goodbye to Diane, my princess.
I don't think I would have done this for any other member of the royal family. I really don't.
I brought my 12-year-old daughter up because in many years to come she'll have children of her own and grandchildren, and she'll be able to tell them what it was really, really like here, how it felt to be here.
There is so much to prepare for tomorrow and so little time in which to do it. Giant video screens are being hastily erected in Hyde Park. They'll relay coverage of the funeral to some of the millions expected in the capital. Inevitably, security is one of the principal concerns for the authorities. So too, of course, is crowd control. The police are ready for an extraordinary number of mourners and they're confident they can cope.
This is a unique event, as has been said before, and estimates range from anything from 1 million to 6 million people. Whatever numbers we get here, we're confident that we can deal with them. This will be the biggest funeral in London since that of Winston Churchill more than 30 years ago. Some 27,000 Metropolitan Police officers will be on duty tomorrow. Most of the force have had their leave cancelled. Their aim, they say, is to ensure that those who come to mourn can do so not only in dignity, but also in safety. Hundreds of portable toilets have been put in place, but mourners are being urged to think twice before bringing babies and young children to what may be an arduous day in a crowded capital.
The message is be prepared. Bring plenty of food, bring cold drinks, bring hot drinks, bring warm clothing, very important, and bring waterproof clothing, very important as well. And let's not forget, although we have installed a lot of additional temporary public toilets, there will be very long queues.
Tonight, mourners are setting off from all corners of the kingdom to converge on the capital. Each journey a personal tribute to the princess, each traveller determined to bid her their own farewell. Some trains are being doubled or tripled in length, and many extra rail, bus and coach services have been laid on. Police are appealing to people to come by public transport. Many of London's roads will be sealed off tomorrow, and those that aren't will be clogged up. This evening, shops and businesses across the country have closed and won't reopen in the morning as a mark of respect for the Princess of Wales. Meanwhile, some of the 1 million floral tributes laid in London have had to be moved to make way for the funeral cortege tomorrow. Buckingham Palace say they're carefully considering what to do with the sea of bouquets, but certainly all the messages that accompany them will be collected for the royal family to read, messages that together help express a nation's sense of loss. Ben Brown, BBC News.
The princess will now be buried on an island at the centre of an ornamental lake within the grounds of her ancestral house at Althorpe in Northamptonshire. It was a favourite place of hers as a child. She was to have been laid to rest at the village church at Great Brington, where generations of her family are buried. Her brother, Earl Spencer, explained that the arrangements had been changed so that the grave could be properly looked after by her family and visited in privacy by her sons.
Deep in the Northamptonshire countryside, the Spencer family home is peaceful and quiet. Princess Diana's last resting place will be an island in the lake, set a little apart from the house and away from the village and the public who have so idolised her in recent days. The coffin will be carried onto this tiny island and buried alone. According to her family, they want her here where they can tend her grave and where her sons can visit her in peace and privacy. The ground has been specially consecrated to make it a Christian burial site, a short service carried out this week by the Bishop of Peterborough.
I think it is very unusual. I would say it is almost unique, in my experience certainly, but clearly in this very extraordinary case it is exactly the right thing to do.
Generations of the Spencer family lie in the local church, and at first it was planned to bury the princess here too. But it's a quiet village, and the family was worried about both public safety and security. Already thousands have flocked to the gates of Althorpe House simply to pay tribute. Many local people welcomed the decision.
I think for her family, the boys especially, it's very important that they can go and visit her whenever they feel the need.
At least she'll be safe on Althorpe grounds, and she'll be able to rest in peace.
I'm not sure how Diana herself would feel, because she was very, very fond of her father, wasn't she? She might have preferred to be laid to rest with him. But in the circumstances, maybe it is the right decision.
So great is the public interest, the Spencer family are considering when and how to make the grave accessible, and they're also discussing a permanent memorial outside the grounds. Tomorrow, the funeral procession will sweep in through these gates, bringing Princess Diana's body home. This peaceful community will never be quite the same. Jackie Rowley, BBC News, Althorpe House.
Diana's mother and sisters have attended a requiem mass at Westminster Cathedral, led by the head of the Catholic Church in England, Cardinal Basil Hume. Prayers for the princess have been held by people of many different faiths across the country. Our religious affairs correspondent Alex Kirby reports.
The full solemnity at Westminster Cathedral this evening of a sung requiem mass, the Catholic community's own farewell to the princess with its own most sacred liturgy. Diana's mother, Frances Shand Kidd, and her two sisters were in the congregation. The cathedral was packed so tight that the doors had to be closed well before the start of the mass. Cardinal Basil Hume, who in his sermon spoke of Diana as flawed but lovable and above all loved by God, reminded the faithful why they were there.
This Mass has been offered for the repose of the soul of Diana, Princess of Wales. We pray too for her two sons, Prince William and Prince Harry, for Prince Charles, for Diana's own mother, her brother and two sisters, for Her Majesty the Queen, and we pray also for all those grieving at this time, the families of those who died with her, and for Mr. Trevor Rhys-Jones, who still lies in hospital, grievously sick.
Soon, though, all attention will be focused on Westminster Abbey, the setting for so many defining national moments. Final preparations went on throughout the day, with a full dress rehearsal this afternoon to make sure there'll be no hitches. But the work is almost done, and tonight the Abbey will be silent and waiting. As this extraordinary week draws towards its climax, the country's grief has given it a sense of unity unfamiliar for many years. And even religions which normally worship apart and according to their own strict rules have found themselves caught up in something quite outside their experience. Today, Islam's holy day saw Muslims making their way to worship across the country, here arriving at a simple back-street mosque in Bradford. It was a traditional Friday prayer meeting. But it wasn't long before the Imam mentioned the name on so many people's minds today. Many Muslims admire Diana's humanitarian work, and especially her campaign against landmines, something, the preacher said, where Muslim political leaders had much to learn from her. Alex Kirby, BBC News.
Both communities in Northern Ireland, Unionist and Nationalist, have been deeply affected by the death of the princess. Flowers have been laid at a number of locations and books of condolence opened. South of the border, too, amid an unprecedented wave of sympathy, the Irish government has ordered that all flags are to be flown at half-mast.
It could be anywhere in this United Kingdom, but at the heart of its most divided corner, Belfast, now there's a unity. Here, where royalty affirms the Britishness of the Protestant community and provides a focus of nationalist opposition to British rule, the princess has pulled those two groups together in a way I haven't ever witnessed. It won't affect long-term political affiliation, but the princess managed uniquely to bridge the divide. And a face in the crowd, Lord Fitt, once Republican Socialist MP for West Belfast, paying her that compliment in his hometown.
I think she came across as someone who took on the establishment
and done her own thing. And I think that appeals to young people on both sides of the peace line here.
And not just to the young on either side of that line.
She was sad with the people of Northern Ireland, you know, with all the things that happened, like, you know, with everybody on both sides. Like, I mean, there's tragedy happening on both sides. She was just there for us all the time.
And it doesn't stop at the border. The British Embassy in Dublin, besieged by flowers. The like of this just has not happened before in the lifetime of this young independent nation and its young people.
As an ambassador, you see a great many things, and I've been a diplomat for 30 years. I've never seen anything quite like this kind of outpouring. And in our closest neighbour country, the one country with which we have a land border, it is most touching.
In instinctive response to this mood, all flags on state buildings in the Republic of Ireland will fly at half-mast tomorrow.
In Ireland, there has been a great sympathy with many of the causes that the Princess has been associated with, and it is only right and proper that is reflected in this state by the flags at half-mast.
Dennis Murray, BBC News, Ireland.
And now today's other news. 12...